Okay, folks, today's October 24th, 2019. Remember, we're trying to make at least 100 videos for this year. I think this makes video number 78 or 79. So basically, we need to make about 3 to 4 videos a week to finish out the year. If we can get over 100, that'll be even better. Next year, we're going to try to double that, get about 200 videos out. And then the year after, we're going to try to shoot for about 300 videos. So most of these videos are basically just going to be my own personal vlogs, since I don't have a huge subscriber base yet. I'm not really worried about it. This is just my way of taking digital notes so that I always have something to refer back to on why I made certain decisions. But anyway, let's get started. Right now we're looking live at the futures. Dow 30, S&P 500, NASDAQ, small caps. They're all slightly up. Let's see how the markets finished for today. Okay, for today, the Dow was slightly down. Small caps slightly down. NASDAQ did pretty good. So the tech sector did pretty good, up 0.8%. S&P 500 up 0.2%. Let's look at some charts. Okay, today we'll start with the financial sector, XLF. You see XLF is up 0.14 or down 0.14%. Not much. 20-day moving average, 50-day moving average, 200-day moving average are still pointing up. So we're still technically in an uptrend. I like what I see on this chart. Let's look at the semiconductors, SMH. Semiconductors tell us a lot about the tech sector. So anybody who likes the NASDAQ, pay attention to semiconductors. They'll pretty much tell you the direction that the tech sector is heading in. You look at the last 3 or 4 days, we're basically where we were coming into the week. So Monday, we're just a little bit higher than where we were Monday. Monday was an up day. Tuesday was a down day. Wednesday was a down day. Thursday was a huge up day. Semiconductors are up 2.65% for the day. Hopefully tomorrow it gets higher than we were last week. That will be a good sign. If that happens, that means the markets should be hitting higher. So that's one thing we're keeping an eye on. Let's look at the Dow Jones Transportation, DJT. Okay, Dow Jones Transportation was down almost 0.5% today. So 20-day moving average is still above the 50-day moving average. They're both still heading towards the 200-day moving average. Remember, if they cross the 200-day moving average from below, if they cross it from below, markers are headed higher. I mean, they're headed nicely higher, like maybe 4 or 5%. That's one thing we'll keep an eye on. Let's look at the other indexes. IWM, small caps. IWM was down 0.14%. Nothing major. 20-day moving average is headed up. 50-day moving average is headed up. They're both headed up towards the 200-day moving average. By the time they catch up to the 200-day moving average, small cap should be up 5 or 6%, is my best guess. So we're looking forward to that. It looks very likely to happen this year still. So especially since the Fed is dumping a lot of money into the system. And actually, the Fed actually increased the amount of money that they're adding to the system. They call it the repo market, but I can almost guarantee they're just basically giving the money to the banks. So they went from what was it, 75, 35, about 110 billion per day. Now they're up to 165 billion dollars per day that they're dumping into the system, and that doesn't include the monthly treasuries that the Fed is going to start buying. So I think I said it before, back when it was 100 billion a day that they were putting into the system or the repo market. I told you that more than likely it will double to 200 billion per day. This is supposed to go on till I think January. I think it's going to go on a lot longer than that. Pretty soon, I would say by January, we should probably be up to $500 billion per day, $500 billion per day that they're putting into the system. The reason why I think that is there should be really no good reason why the Fed is still dumping money into the system if we've been putting money into the system for a good month. If we've been putting about $100 billion in per month, how bad are the uh, banks? And it's supposed to be the United States banks, but I think secretly we're bailing out Deutsche Bank and maybe some more of the European banks. I think that's what's going on. I think the European banks have failed. They're trying to hide it from the rest of the world, and this repo market receiving all these hundreds of $1 billion per day is just a way of covering them so the United States banks don't fail. But in return, they also have to try to save the German banks and a lot of the European banks because we've known for a while that European banks are in trouble. So I'm looking for the Fed to say, hey, we're going to put 300 billion in to 500 billion in per day sometime by January. Right now, it's the last week of October. I'm thinking by January it'll be up to 500 billion per day. I don't see how the system doesn't start panicking when you start putting in 500 billion per day after you've been putting in about 100 million per day for a month, 200 billion per day for 2 months, and then you're gonna need another 500 billion per day, uh, probably for a whole year to keep the system from falling apart. So I think the average person is going to start worrying, start figuring out what's going on, and I do expect a lot of volatility next year in the stock markets. I do expect a lot of gains in the stock market next year because next year is an election year. I also do expect Donald Trump to win another election. And the reason for that is the banks actually control the world. And since the banks are getting all this money, there's no way they're going to kick Donald Trump out and try to depend on another president to dump hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars into the system per day. They're not going to take that risk. So they'll stay with Donald Trump. They'll keep pumping these markets up through 2020, maybe through 2021, maybe even through 2023. And then I look for the markets really to be in trouble. I mean, when I say trouble, I mean down 50, 60, 70% about late 2023, early 2024 when we're switching to a new president. So after Donald Trump does 2 terms, the next president should be a Democratic president. That's what I'm guessing on. So let's look at the rest of the markets. Let's look at S&P 500. So SPY. SPY was up 0.2%. It's looking like most of the other markets, 20 days pointing up, 50 days pointing up, 200 days pointing up. Let's look at the NASDAQ QQQ. NASDAQ looks very similar to the S&P 500. 200 days higher than the 20-day moving average is higher than the 50-day moving average. They're both higher than the 200-day moving average. They're both sloping up. I mean, they're all three sloping up. The charts are above the 20-day, 50-day, 200-day moving average. We do expect the markets to continue to go up. It looks like QQQ was up almost 1% today, so that's a good sign. The only thing I don't like about the QQQs is it didn't quite get higher than last week, so hopefully it gets higher than last week tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. So if they can finish higher tomorrow than they did last week, that's a good sign for QQQs. I also do believe the Qs are close to an all-time high, another new all-time high. So let's see, 196. Yeah. So yeah, I think the Qs are within. They're a little bit shy of 1% of a new all-time high. I do believe a little over 1%. They'll hit new all-time highs. So we're expecting that to happen fairly soon. The markers are just teasing us for right now, but we do expect it to happen. Dow Jones, DJI, Dow Jones finished down 0.11%. The chart is still above the moving averages, which is a good sign. Dow Jones isn't too far off of its all-time high as well. So that's one thing we're keeping on track. We're still positioned 35%, putting 35% State Street Russell, which is small caps. And then we're positioned 65% Putnam Stable Value. We really don't know what these markets are going to do, but we'll just stay positioned there for a while. They head higher. We do expect the markets, I keep saying this, we do expect the markets to head higher. Dow Jones, S&P 500, NASDAQ, all three of them hit new all-time highs, 6 to 8% pullback, and then gain about 10 to 13% to end the year up after this 6 to 8% pullback. Those are my thoughts. So I'm just putting it out there. We'll see how accurate I am by the end of the year. Thanks for your patience. Like, comment, subscribe, share the videos. Thanks for hanging in here this year. It's been a touch and go year. We're going to try to get our audio better, perhaps some better videos. But it's just a start. Most of this stuff is for personal vlogs, just so you know. But the reason why we're trying to do 100 videos this year, 200 videos next year, 300 videos the year after that, is because each week, as long as we're putting videos out, people are watching the videos. Even though we haven't had any new subscribers, we're just going long term off of views, viewing time, likes. Hopefully by 2023, 2024, the market starts coming down. We have established a nice base where we have at least 1,000 to 1,500 videos out there. So people have a nice base to look at, see how good we were, see what our struggles were, and see how we're doing versus everybody else. Later.